Here at Davina's headquarters in New York City with my buddy Johnny Othona all the way from London. He's going to be sharing some of his incredible cutting technique with you today. Let's just get right into the haircut and we'll talk a bit more in a minute. So what do you got for us tonight, Johnny?
Okay, so tonight I'm going to do something which is based on our latest collection called Wiggle. The reference is on the computer over there, and you can feel free to have a little look later on of the reference itself, and I can help you explain what it is we're doing. If I zoom in, let me show you the zone of sectioning first. So if I shift my body around, I've started in the nape, okay? Now the zone itself goes from the top, so if I spin round, it starts from the top, and then basically the zone wiggles all the way through. Tilt the head back for me, look up at the ceiling, perfect. Look down slightly, down more, a bit more, perfect. So it wiggles all the way through to the center of the nape, okay? So my technique I'm starting is in the center of the nape. I've cut two sections already. Now if you can see, I've left it quite long. There's a reason why I've left it quite long. The head shape is quite, the best way to define it would be a really unusual canvas to work on. The mastoid process bone and the occipital bone are quite intense and
she's
quite
got
protruding.
the beautiful face to make up for it, though, don't
That's
you, Charlie?
right. She's got an incredible face.
Yeah.
So what I need to do is I need to be mindful of the choice of length in that area. So I'm choosing quite a long length in order for me to disguise the surface of the head.
So essentially, Johnny, you've spent some time analyzing the head shape.
Big time.
And I think you were saying you felt that there was a lot of mass in the mastoid area, so to speak.
Definitely.
So you've customized your technique. And just explain one more time how, like, what you noticed and how you're customizing it. And guys, if you have questions out there, Johnny's a master teacher, obviously an incredibly precise hair cutter and a expressive, that's the word of the day, an eloquent spokesperson for his technique. So let's hear your questions as well. So tell us a little bit about the head shape one more time,
okay,
and how you chose your technique.
So there's key bones that you need to be mindful of on the scalp. So you've got the frontal bone, which obviously sits around the front. You've got the parietal bone, which is the large bone through the top. You've got the sphenoid bone, which is here, the temporal bone, and the mastoid process. And the reason why they call it a mastoid process is because there's a series of bones that meet in that area, like almost like a small cluster of bones. So in this scenario, with Charlie's head, as well as the occipital bone, obviously, that everyone knows, with Charlie, her mastoid process bone is quite pronounced. That's a good word.
Yeah,
quite pronounced. And what I'm doing,
which goes beautifully with her beautiful cheekbones.
Exactly. So what I'm doing is the main thing that it affects basically is the choice of length. Think about it, when we're teaching, we try to describe it a little bit like this. Think about your lawn at home or your garden at home. If you grade all the grass down really, really, really short, then basically what you do is you expose the surface of the floor. So if
you
the
can see the terrain, whatever the terrain is. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if you leave the grass a little bit longer, the grass just disguises the surface, and hair works in the same way. Basically, it either exposes or disguises any little imperfections, any little indentations or protrusions of the scalp. So in effect, it affects your choice of length.
So you're actually building a shape around the bone structure, and you've determined where you need to compensate to kind of give her build a better head shape, is how we used to say it sometimes in our sassoon days. And we'll talk about that. Johnny's got an incredible background. I want to give a shout out to some of the people watching. Zoe Hughes, I think she's never missed an episode. Thank you, Zoe. We've got 270 people watching live right now around the world, which is incredible. Thank you, guys. Louisa Navarro wants to know, like, what kind of a haircut is it? I know we've kind of called it an expressive short shape.
A bit more specific.
Yeah, let's be a little more specific.
So, first of all, thank you for your question. Who was it that asked the question?
Louisa Navarro.
Louisa, thank you.
Our buddy Josh LaMonica just tuned in too.
Hey Josh, mate.
What's up, Josh?
So basically, the head shape is going to be quite a short fitted shape. The idea of I'm going to be working around the wiggle, around the first area of disconnection.
Come from the sectioning,
the
wiggle.
Yeah, that's the principle of the idea.
Curvilinear sectioning.
Yeah, and what I'm doing now, you can see obviously I'm cutting it shorter internally and slightly longer externally to maintain an element of length on the external shape, but I will be crafting and outlining after. But what I'm trying to do is make the hair hug the shape. So my cutting line, even though it's slightly shorter in the center, is still quite rounded. I'm working on the base, so my number system is 1, which is my initial section, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and so forth. So I'm working from the back to the front.
So over direction wise, it's very minimal.
Yeah, basically the only thing that's moving is my guide. The actual hair that I'm introducing is not being over directed. So I'm going to continue working up to the top of the ear here, and then I'm going to stop. Okay, and I'll explain to you why I'm going to stop and then reintroduce the front.
I want to give some shout outs to some other people tuning in. We're over the 300 mark, guys, live viewers. That's fantastic. Thank you. We've got Emily Dahlberg tuning in from Sweden.
Cool.
We just went to Sweden for the first time. What an incredible country. Have you been to Sweden? I'm sure
I
you
go
have.
often, yeah. I love it.
Love it there. I think it's become one of my favorite European. Stockholm has become one of my favorite European cities.
Some seriously beautiful people there.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Emily. We've got Lauren Billingsley, who's a longtime community member. She just says, yes, he's so good, which is obviously true.
Thank you.
Louisa wants to know, that's who asked you before about the shape. She wants to know what degree your angle is. Is it 45 or 90?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, so within Alilon, we try to avoid talking degrees. We talk more about the shape. I'll explain to you why. 90 degrees, 45 degrees, you know, these are degrees that you can really understand because they're quite simple, they're quite pure. But there's so many variations in between which could be really confusing for people. So we try to avoid talking degrees. What I'd rather focus on is the shape that we're creating. And what we're trying to create is a round shape, and we're using a cutting line, elevation and over direction to create that.
Excellent, excellent answer. Thank you very much. So we've got a really great international crew. We've got some of your countrymen from England tuning in.
Cool.
Abigail from Plymouth. We had someone from Lincolnshire. We've got Erica Kidd from Dublin. Awesome, awesome. This is a great one. Melissa Gill, I learned better from stylists with accents. I hope a New York accent counts, because I've got a New York accent, but Johnny's got a very proper British accent.
Mine's a dodgy accent, that's what mine is.
Matthew's joining in, who's over in Croatia. So we've got a great international community. We just shot up to 379 live viewers. So everyone that's watching, if you're valuing this, and if you want to hit that share button, we'd appreciate it. We're trying to reach as many hairdressers as we can with this incredible education tonight with Johnny, especially to support the Davines brand who helped to supply this incredible education. So just hit that share button so all your friends can know about it. Let's get back to Johnny's haircut.
Perfect. What I'll do is I'll rotate a little bit so that you can get a better light. So I've worked up to that same point on top of the ear. I'm going to stop now, okay? So this will be my zone 1. Now I'm going to start in the temple, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to work around this way, so I'll come around over here. Okay, I'm going to start on the fringe. Now, I'm going to be going for quite a graphic fringe after, so the main thing I need to be mindful of is my choice of length in this area. I've got an absolutely beautiful model. I mean, look at those eyes. They're incredible, yeah? So
say hi, Charlie.
Hi.
my focus is to get something quite curved through here. So I need to leave some length through the front forehead. So I'm going to start from the top, okay? I'm going to come on this side.
Yep.
There you go.
Get into position for the big time cutting here.
And I'm going to lift the hair up. Now this is really interesting. You know when you are looking for choice of length, a good thing to also think about is the previous colour. Can you see the root?
Mm-hmm.
To have really good control of balance, you can use things like the colour to help you. In other words, if I elevate the hair and I place my finger, so I'm basically cutting out all of the colour at that same point every time, I know my balance is going to be perfect because the hair's grown out at a certain point. But I need it to be a bit longer than that, but I just thought that was a really good little tip to give you, to use the colour to help you control your balance. So I'm going to use a round cutting line, and my sectioning is going to pivot from this point here. Now can you see, because of the choice of length that I've chosen, the hair allows itself to bend. If I was to go a little bit shorter, that hair would stick straight up. If I was to go a little bit longer, it would have a bit more of a bend to it. So I want it just to curve, to sit nicely for me. So choice of length is a major thing that we focus on as a company when we're teaching people.
So let's talk big picture here. You said your new collection is called Wiggle.
Yes.
And we can clearly see on the screen the way you've sectioned the top in half using a wiggly line.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this concept of wiggle and how you think it affects the hair?
Perfect. Well, the collection is based on a guy called Alan Watts, and if you somebody who follows Alilon and our collections, you'll know that our collections are never about us. They're always about telling people stories. And there's an amazing and incredible guy. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but his name was Alan Watts, and he was a lecturer. And one of the things that he talked about was the idea that in life, nothing is nothing natural comes in straight lines. Everything is wiggles. And what human beings do, in order for us to understand it, is we put it in boxes, we put it in systems, we make them straight lines. So the idea behind the collection is to play with this idea of kind of us trying to manage wiggles in hair.
So like nothing organic, nothing from nature comes in right angles or
nothing.
straight lines.
If you really think about it,
right.
It's like, if you think about the landscapes, if you think about how water runs, if you think about how anything natural never ever comes in
I
straight
love how
lines.
you're using precision cutting, which I think people often think about in straight lines and angles, but can be morphed into something more organic. I love how you're doing that by changing the sectioning and giving it a theory. And I think that's one thing that you guys do incredibly at Alalon. You give things meaning.
Thank you.
It's not just about, there's craftsmanship, but that's not the end of it. There's like a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
The craftsmanship just seems like the base that you have to have.
100%.
And then it goes from there. It has to, everything has a story.
100%.
I think that that comes from you and Pedro's leadership. Having spent time with both of you guys, you're both such humanists, and you're
Thanks,
kind of
man.
about the people. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But we've got lots of love coming in. We're up to 500 live viewers right now,
wow.
which is great. Again, I'm going to ask all you guys, if you're enjoying it, hit the share button. That's incredible. If you're wondering where we are, you can see all this beautiful product in the background. We're at the Davines headquarters in New York City. Johnny flew over here
Just for this.
Just for this specifically.
Just for this.
Yep, to do an HB Live at the Davines headquarters. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Davines before you get back to the haircut. Because Johnny, most of you guys know him because of his incredible education brand, Alalon. But you also have a salon in the heart of London, which is a quite chic, beautiful salon.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship there.
It's our home. Well, Alalon's been going for 7 years now. And since day dot, there's one product company which has basically had our back. And that's without a doubt been Davines. And the best thing about our relationship is that, for example, I'll give you a prime example. Last night, a guy called Anthony Mollet, who basically is
He's the president of North America.
He's the CEO of North America. He rang me up and he was like, Johnny, welcome to America, blah blah blah. And I'm like, the CEO of this company doesn't have to phone me, doesn't have to ring me, but he did. And he didn't do it once, he did it twice. He rang me the day before.
He rang me too. I tried to call him back. Maybe we were all supposed to meet up and have a little aperitif or something. So we're going to do that tonight.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's like, that's what I love about the company. They've got this beautiful ethical brand. They've got a really good way of looking at life in general. And it's not a corporate company, which is something I really enjoy. And we're not a corporate company, which is something I really enjoy. So
you guys go hand in hand. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So we've got lots of people have shared. Thank you so much. And that's what helps us spread the word here. Let's get back to the technical education, Johnny, which you do so well.
Cool. So basically, at the moment, I've chosen a round cutting line, and I've worked on the base to here. You can see this is the point where the recession starts. From this point down, I'm going to start to introduce the sideburn area. So my cutting line, from being round, has now started to become slightly more triangular towards the external shape to maintain the element of length through here. Now what's interesting, I've got one more section to cut, okay, and then I'm going to start to, can you see, this is my short hair from the zone 1. I'm actually going to use diagonal sections and horizontal sections to connect the two zones together, and this will be my connection point. Here it will be disconnected, but through here it will be connected. So let me finish this last section here.
While you're doing that, I'm going to give a shout out. Ben Crace is watching.
Hey,
He's
Ben.
One of your accolades here in the U.S. and him and James are doing so well with their haircutting education.
Amazing.
I know they owe a lot of their training to you.
No, they're good, really good guys.
Lots
really
of love coming in. We've got someone who's not a hairdresser, Sandra Tucker, saying I'm not a hairdresser, but this is pure art. Which
join
is
us.
Great compliment.
Thank you, Sandra. Welcome to our community.
So, a little bit about history here. Both Johnny and I come from the Sassoon background, and I think that's obviously where we kind of the concrete of our technique comes from. And as I'm watching you cut here, obviously I can appreciate the beauty and the beauty and the cleanliness of what you're doing. But I always think of references, and I bet you do as well. Whenever I see a short shape with like soft edges or longer edges, it makes me start to think about Greek goddess and moosh. Are you thinking about any of those shapes right now, kind of like reinventing that idea with different sectioning and a different approach?
I think, you've got some really beautiful, you mentioned some really beautiful heritage haircuts, which I think can be a visual inspiration for anybody. They were definitely images that influenced me as a kid.
I'm sorry, before we continue, can you go ahead and take us through how you got to the section that you're cutting right now?
Good. So basically, I've got zone 1 and zone 2. Now I've left basically like a half a centimetre of length through here, which I'm using as my connection zone. So a good little tip for you is when you're doing two opposite shapes and you're going to try to connect them, having at least an inch of hair, which in your mind you use as your connection point, is a really good reference.
Lots of love coming in. People really appreciating, you know, how expressive you are and explaining it and appreciating the art. I hear you mention the word zone a lot, and
yes.
I'm not sure that everyone uses that term or maybe understands it. Can you give us an idea when you say zone? Okay. What exactly are you getting at?
So basically, when we talk about shape, obviously you've got lots of different shapes that you can create, but often you try to think of a haircut a bit like a jigsaw. Each piece has a part to play. So when you're working in zones, what you're doing is you're isolating zones or isolating areas, which allows you to work one mechanical shape or one system, one form of cutting line, whatever it will be, in one area, and then another one in another area, and you're basically playing with dimensions constantly. So think of it as like a jigsaw that you're putting together constantly. And by using zones, you're allowing yourself to basically identify and control each area of the head.
And kind of go beyond basic shape and basic configurations.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me think of the term modular, like different, sometimes they call furniture modular, like when you have different pieces that you can put together in different ways.
100%.
And you can kind of keep moving them around.
100%.
You know, but within each one of those pieces, you're still using pure classic technique, control, elevation,
Definitely.
over direction, and then you put them all together to make something unique.
I'm gonna play with the outlines now a little bit to try and give the haircut some definition. And what you find when you're cutting shapes, when you start to actually put outlines in, all of a sudden the haircut pops, the internal mechanics pop. So if you've noticed, it's something I'm focused on quite a lot recently, and it's something that I've been speaking to my friends about a lot, is trying to bring back this principle of working from wet to dry. It's something which I think has been lost, and I really would love to try and encourage that to be brought back. So I haven't blow dried the hair yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to work with my external shape now. Now can you see the bend in the hair, how it curves? I'm cutting it on the bend, so I know it will sit nicely.
So now, if someone wanted to leave that kind of softer, flicky outline, is that something they could just leave?
Yeah, of course.
So for you, you're choosing to do a stronger outline to give a more definite shape to it. It's a personal choice.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in theory, when I worked my internal shape instantly created my external length. So by choosing the angle of cutting line which I chose, it enabled me to have an element of length that reacted by itself and worked by itself. I didn't have to cut it off. It could have worked.
Yeah. But so you're going in now, creating a defined outline using kind of just the tip of the scissor, and you know, I notice that you just kind of, you'll leave what's beneath it, and then you'll kind of deal with that later. I think sometimes people are wondering like how to approach that. Do they go in and undercut it first and then put the line in? But it looks like you just go right in for the line, and then you'll detail it later.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, with the main principle, I'm trying to put the basic shape in, and then once the hair's been dried properly, I can then start to really, really refine and personalise my lines. But for now, I'm just trying to get an overall shape, and I'm conscious of time as well, so I'm really trying to work quite rapidly.
We won't rush you, Johnny. Don't worry. We can appreciate your. And everyone's staying tuned. We've still got about 500 live viewers, so that's
fantastic.
That's a great amount of viewers, and everyone's really interested and supportive, loving what you're doing. They love the shape.
Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, guys. If you are enjoying, which it seems like a lot of you are, please go ahead and hit that share button. This way more of your friends and fellow hairdressers can see this, and we can give that support to Davinez, who really kind of provided this incredible space and brought Johnny in to do this live demonstration.
I mean, you've mentioned Davinez. And I think one of the things I love about the company is that it has this real passion for education. It lets the hairdressers lead the education.
And so much diversity within the education.
Big time.
You know, you've got very editorial and very soft and kind of, for lack of a better word, very Italian kind of hair. And then you've got very strong graphic, precision cutting, which I think is great. They're just embracing all the different elements of the craft of hairdressing.
Yeah, they're ticking the boxes in today.
Some joker named Jonathan Corby wants to know who's your favorite Al-Anon educator?
There's a guy called Jonathan Corby.
Oh, I same joker.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
he works with us.
He's a bit too tall though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got lanky legs.
Yeah.
He's actually just had an operation, bless him, so he's a bit delicate at the moment.
Oh, really?
So he
You got that ugly wart taken off?
Right. My goodness.
Yeah. He can't really walk at the moment.
Oh, another buddy tuned in, Joseph DiMaggio.
Hey, mate, how you
What's
doing?
up, brother? Mad love and respect for Johnny Athana and his crew. Sorry we couldn't make it. Packing for a Chicago trip tomorrow.
Yeah, he's
Good to see you, Joe. We were here during Fashion Week right here in this corner with Joseph, and he did a brilliant job as well.
Yeah, I saw it. It was fantastic. And the thing is with, my passion is cutting hair, and I think I've got so much respect for people who have a craft that I respect it. It's not my thing. I can't physically do it as well as some people.
I mean,
So
dressing and styling, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch people manipulate hair in that way, it's so amazing to watch.
Well, you got to have a real passion for what you do. I mean, myself also come from a Sassoon background. We always heard, jack of all trades, ace of none was kind of like a saying that was always it. And that kind of stuck with us. So we stuck to one area. I mean, some people do a little bit of everything and they do it well. Some people focus on one area and do it incredibly. Most of the great editorial hairdressers that I know would say that they're not good hair cutters.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Or they just don't do that much of it.
That's something they definitely say. I mean, I think for me, it's all about respect. At the end of the day, I would be able to do a hair up, but it would be no way the level that some artists
unless
are,
you practiced it every
Yeah.
single day, again and again. It's kind of what you're doing. Huh?
It's whatever tickles your bolt at the end of the day. But I think Joseph, when I watched him do his thing here, I thought it was wicked. It was really good. Really
All right,
good.
so let's get back to the haircut, because now you're starting to remove that superfluous hair,
Yeah.
and you're doing it in a very particular way that a lot of people ask about. Can you explain how you do that with the scissor?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we teach in Al-Anon isn't just about the bones. We also get people to focus on learning the muscle. So there's a muscle here called the trapezius muscle, and there's a muscle here called the sternocleidomastoid. So
Well, say that again 5 times really fast. Is that Greek?
Yeah.